So now that you've set the context behind what you're doing in this interview, you now need to flip over and get into the context that that person was in when they made the purchase. And what you're trying to find out here is, who are they? So what's their job? What's their job title? Who do they work for? So what's the company? What's the size of the organization? Give us all of the information that we might need to understand what is this organization that we're talking to, and who are you? Like who within this is making this decision. What you'll see in this interview is actually Victoria changed jobs since the story took place. So she initially launches into an explanation of who she is and what she's doing right now, which is irrelevant. So I kind of want to wipe that from my memory. And this is how I then go and dig through and get back to what was she actually doing and who was she working for when this story took place. Because obviously it's the person in context that makes the buying decision, and we need to understand their context before we can move through any other part of the story.
So with that in mind, perhaps could you help set the scene by giving a bit of an introduction to yourself? Who are you? What's the job you're doing? What's the organisation you're working for? What's the big picture in which your story takes place, please?
Sure. So I'm Victoria. I currently live in Brisbane, Australia. By the accent, I'm not from here.
It doesn't
say. Currently, my role is I'm an event director, and I look after event development, culture, entertainment and destination at an organisation called Tourism Events Queensland, which is a state tourism organisation.
Okay.
So I particularly look after event growth, and the acquisition and development of events, sort of I've worked within this industry for about 10 years. So I'm working for an STO just now, but I've also worked for private event companies as well.
Okay, an STO?
State Tourism Organisation.
Oh, STO, sorry, State Tourism Organisation. Perfect, yeah. Thanks. State Tourism, okay. Excellent. How long have you been the event director for the State Tourism Organ?
For this organisation, 2 years.
2 years. Okay, cool. Thank you. And how big's the organisation? Is this a massive organisation? Is it relatively small in terms of people or budget or whatever makes sense?
So there's 137 people.
Okay.
Our annual budget's 125 million. And specifically from my department, it's 40 million.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's good. And you mentioned in the screener that is it Jill Davies Consultancy? Mm-hmm. Could you tell me in your own words what was it that you bought? What did you think you were going to get?
So for that particular project, we engaged Jill Davis Consultants to do 2 pieces of work that ran concurrently. So the organisation I worked for at that time was an event management company in the Northern Territory, and we delivered 6 events. We had 6 owned events within our portfolio, and each of those individual events worked on an individual budget. And then we had a company operating budget. So the company had grown, sort of it went from a $20 million budget to a $50 million budget, sort of in a period of about 18 months. Staff went from 8 FTEs to 30 FTEs. So there was this period of exponential growth, but our systems, our procedures hadn't caught up with that growth. So we were still doing things the way that we were doing when we had 8 people, when we had 30 people, but also we'd experienced this exponential growth for each of the individual events within our portfolio, or categories within however you want to refer to them. So identifying, actually there's probably a piece of work that has to happen about allocating resources in terms of where we're going to get results, and how do we set the business up for success, because we're not going to have the same growth across the 6 categories. So actually, how do we do a long-term strategy to say what do they look like over the next 3 years, over the next 5 years, and where do the resources have to go in order to enable that growth? And then how does that feed into a wider piece in terms of the organisation, to be like, okay, well, how do we resource our organisation in terms of what people do we need in finance, what do we need in operations, who do we need on the ground, what does it look like for marketing, that then could then feed into how we were going to drive success from those 6 events.
Okay, thank you for that. So if I'm hearing you right, this has happened when you were working for a company in the Northern Territory, not in your current role.
Yeah.
So maybe what was your role in the Northern Territory organisation?
I was head of event and strategy.
Okay, head
Of event and development and strategy.
event development. Okay. Strategy. And this is a private company?
Yeah.
Okay. How long did you work there?
3 years.
Okay. And roughly what's the sort of, so I think you mentioned it, there were 8 people and 6 events? And
So we had 8 people. At that time, I think we only had 4 events in our portfolio, and our annual budget was 20 million. And then we acquired another 2 events. So it took us to 6 events in our portfolio, an annual budget of 50 million, and 30 staff.
okay, 6 events, 30 staff, and 50 million budget. Okay. Over what period of time did that happen? So if you were there for 3 years, you've been in current role for 2, so what are we now, just before COVID?
No, after. So the piece of work that we're discussing today, I actually done in my final year with the organisation. So that was, what were we, 2023.
Okay, so this is 2023.
Yeah.
And does all of this story happen in 2023, then the growth of events, or is this over a longer period?
Yeah, so I joined in 2019. So when the organisation, and from 2019 to 2023 is when the growth happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so it makes
So in this, you can see there's quite a lot of moving pieces in this story. She starts off telling us about her current job and about what a state tourism organisation is and does. But actually, the story happened way before, a couple of years earlier. And normally you'd catch that in the screener, but for whatever reason, ours did not. Sometimes the screeners don't work as well as you'd like. But what we then dive into is, okay, who is this organisation? And there's this story about growth that's gone on. They've gone from 4 events to 6 events, from 20 million to 50 million in budget. And the organisation, she talks about the growth. So I don't tend to interrupt very much. If somebody's open and unleashing a long story, let them get it out, capture the core details so that we can go back and dig in later. And what we've learned from this is actually it's a small privately held organisation. They've had a massive growth through COVID. They've taken on a lot more people, a lot more events. And towards the end of this, she's starting to feel that there's some sort of growing pains. There's a strain in the organisation, which is causing her to want to go and get a strategy to put together and to go and solve this problem. So hopefully that helps. You can see that you start off and you can't control what somebody's going to tell you. They will open up and they'll tell you what they want to say. But you can start to anchor back. When did you buy this? Okay, that doesn't make sense. So this is a few years ago. So who were you working for then? What was your role? What was going on in the organisation? And all of these contextual cues are what's causing her to go out and buy a new solution and to seek some assistance, in this case, from an organisational transformation consultant. Cheers.